Hey everyone, thanks a lot for joining us today. Really excited to have you all with us. And just by the way of introductions, my name is Praveen. I'm one of the co-founders of Factors.ai, and I take care of the core product, customer success, and marketing functions at Factors. Today, it's a privilege to have Aditya and Anirudh on this webinar, and they're part of Everstage. We worked with them for over a year now. Let me quickly hand it over to Aditya and Ani for a quick introduction.
Thanks, Praveen. It's wonderful to join this webinar. Hey, folks, I'm Aditya. I head the marketing team here at Everstage. I've been in SaaS for close to 9+ years now in multiple different roles in operations, product marketing, a little bit in product management, and been in marketing for close to 4 years now. And my areas usually that I focus on is around demand gen, 0 to 1 marketing, and anything around revenue operations and building partnerships with other companies, etc. Excited to be on this webinar and looking forward to share some learnings that we have had at Everstage and along with Factors.
Hey everyone, I'm Anirudh. I've been with Everstage for around a year, a little bit more than a year now. And I primarily work in demand generation or pipeline marketing. And prior to this stint at Everstage, I worked at ChargeBee again as a demand generation lead. And I wouldn't put myself as a demand gen marketer. I think mostly it's just applying first principle and logic, and then I think just getting that application across has helped me out so far, and I'm very excited to share my experience in areas like inbound, ABM, outbound, and etc. in this webinar. So thanks for having us, Praveen.
Yeah. And also, Anirudh was one of our first customers while she was working at ChargeBee as well. So even prior to Everstage, we have quite a relationship. So yeah, thanks for the continued support, Ani. Let's get quickly started. So I just because Aditya and Anirudh, today's session we are focusing a lot on marketing ROI, and I expect the audience to be also companies which are quite early in their journey, right? So one of the things I thought we could do was just set some context about Everstage itself. And when we started working together, what was the sort of stage of growth of Everstage, right? So if you can quickly give an overview of the product itself, and that would be like a good starting point.
Sure, Praveen. So Everstage is a sales commissions automation platform. We automate end-to-end from quota planning to ensure your sales reps are getting paid their commissions, right? And in general, I think best way to relate is sales reps have incentive pay, and it needs to be processed to them, and they need to have clarity on how much they want to make every month. And this is usually not a very small company problem. It's usually around 50 to 100 reps is when this is a problem that comes for people. So we help solve for that, and we are funded by Elevation in 314, and I think we also got Factors close to 1.5 years, 2 years ago, and on an average I think we spend somewhere close to $50,000 in marketing spend across a bunch of channels. That's a context about the stage as a company, but as a business model itself is where it gets a little interesting for us, because I come from Freshworks, where everything is inbound driven to an extent, and that's how the most of the the growth has been. But from Everstage, from day one, what was very clear to us is at 50 to 100 reps is when the product is a necessity. Till that, they can live with spreadsheets, right? Like they can process commissions, distribute everything in spreadsheets. What does that mean? That means is at least its customers need to be 200 plus employees for them to make sense of it. So that's a first challenge, which means you're targeting big companies in our business model. And second is there's no try for free, there's no free trial or anything that we could offer like what Freshworks or ChargeBee does. The product needs a lot of work before someone can come and use it. So we usually offer a POC, but even that requires an NDA and the customers to share their data and then come into see that product in with their data. Right? What this means is it's basically focused on a mid-market. It's an enterprise product in a lot of ways. but we minimum start selling at 200 plus employees as such. And to add to that is also the nature of the product itself. It's a sales incentive pay calculation and automation product. So when it comes to sales incentive pay, you have your sales reps, you have your payees who actually get the product, and there is sales leadership who are sales managers who have a say in the product as well. So that's one persona. And then there is revenue operations and sales operations folks who are creating all these commission plans. That's another persona that's involved, who's probably one of our main decision makers, whereas your sales reps are going to be your end users. And then there is a finance team. So, like, everything money related, especially when it comes to salary, always has a CFO, the finance teams getting involved. And at scale, a lot of companies also have a dedicated sales compensation as a function. There are sales compensation manager, incentive compensation managers as well. So to some extent, it's basically 4 to 5 personas are involved in the decision making and purchase process, and that makes it a very complex set of audience to market to. It's not again like it's very complex. Even in enterprise, it's not just selling to IT; it's selling to a bunch of personas and targeting them. And even in a lot of cases, like, you have to cover the C-suite executives because right now, like, any new big deal, right? Like this also puts us in around like, mid 5 digits is where our average ACV is also due to like, the nature of big companies that are buying them. So it's clearly a mid-market product and customers are minimum 100 plus. So, and we predominantly sell to US, UK markets, followed by, ANZ, Canada and Europe markets. So that's a regional bias. But yeah, that's a brief about it. Praveen, is there anything else that you would want me to share?
Yeah, so I was wondering what you said, right? Like the transition from Freshworks to Everstage, that would have been pretty stark in terms of the fact that Freshworks is a much more easy to use, easy to try out. People can see the value of that product in a matter of like a couple of weeks before they make a decision, and even the ramp up time, I presume, is pretty low, right? But in your case, whilst I presume the price or the cost of the product is linked to the number of payees, you have to move all your sales team to compensation to Everstage in one shot, right? So you can't be doing like a gradual transition. So typically, like post a demo, right? Does it take a long time to kind of implement, integrate with all the core systems, etc.?
Yeah, that's a great question. So on average, it takes somewhere close to 90 days to 120 days before anything happens. Because like you said, so there is a demo and then there is a proof of concept that we offer. And then every deal inevitably has a legal finance team getting involved, the procurement teams getting involved. So in general, that adds about a month into the overall process. And then post that onboarding and getting them to use the product. So companies usually want to do a parallel run to avoid any issues. They still want to do their own way of processing, be it existing tools or spreadsheets, and also run with Everstage to see, hey, do the numbers match? Are we overpaying in Everstage or is it underpaying? So all of this takes about, I would say in some cases, as long as 6 months before the product is like, they sign the contract 3 months, 3 months, and then 6 months they are live on the product. So it's a completely different thing, right? Like in Freshdesk, like, there are customers who come in next minute, they are putting their credit card buying and moving on. Whereas here you have to be fully involved and cover that entire journey of the life cycle of the customer because it's usually annual contracts or multi-year contracts. It's not even like, we don't even do monthly contracts as such. So yeah, that's about the length of this.
Got it. And I presume hence that this is also like a very involved purchase in terms of they're going to be doing a lot of research, and you need to educate that buyer and that buying group like a lot more prior to the or during that demo stage so that they can easily make that decision to try out Everstage in place of spreadsheets or move to Everstage from an existing solution that they are using, right? Got it. So understood. And last question, I think when we started our engagement, I think you had just raised the Series A round. And could you just talk about what was the marketing and the sales team size at that time, and also how was that growth journey, right? Like what were those what changed after Series A in terms of growth expectations, etc.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because I think back then it was just we had one demand person a couple of content folks, one PM, and then we had a designer and dev to go ahead. So we had like around 6 to 7 folks at that point in time. And I think we pretty much doubled that over the the year after that. 6 to 9 months later, we were double the size. And the expectation was very straightforward in a lot of ways. It just there is existing demand in the market. Like it's not a new market. We are not trying to create a new category. There is existing demand in the market. So can we stand out in the market, capture existing demand, and try to create a little more if possible? But we didn't have to the pressure was more about hey, how can we execute on all engines that are already there? Like how can you do inbound better? How can you be efficient at inbound? How can you do the intent engine better? How can you do APM and try to cover all these personas that are involved? So that meant we invested a lot more into demand in general. So that's why we got a bunch of tools, factors or something we made right away. And then we have a demand team is close to 4 people now, focusing on a bunch of initiatives around ABM, which we'll cover as we go. And also we expanded our content and PM team as well to support that ABM engine as well.
Got it. So at the early stage itself, because of the fact that it is an involved sort of purchase, relatively higher ticket size, and a more sort of complex sort of a rollout, ABM was something that you guys had decided was some. So was there? Can you recall when did you decide that okay, fine, rather than just capturing existing search demand, we need to kind of go after target accounts and do a lot more concerted effort into ABM. Can you recall how that decision kind of happened internally?
Yeah, I still remember that basically because we were trying to first, I think we started measuring in leads and then quickly realized that's useless. We need to get good quality leads that are booking a demo and coming on a call and sharing. So we moved into demos. And then we realized, hey, at some point demos are gonna it's gonna cap because inbound is just as much money as you can throw, but it's also not immediate conversion. So you can get a bunch of paid leads, but you're not gonna see the full ROI right away. So I think at some point we realized, hey, outbound is the only way. Like how much, what is the role of marketing when it comes to that? Because all of these are going to be big deals. You know the challenges, and you know that inbound is going to be good, but it's not going to fully scale. There is a lot more demand in the market, people who are not inbound. Because it's not that we predominantly sell to software as an industry, we sell to manufacturing, we sell to pharma companies, insurance companies, and banking. And those companies are all usually large and they don't come inbound or look online. They go through a detailed research with an analyst group, or they go look at a few different sources of information to find the best product. So that's when we realize, okay, we need to go outbound. And from marketing as well, we need to support the efforts that medias and sales are going to put on outbound. And the only thing that made sense at that point was to look at an account-based marketing exercise to see how we can get in front of those people, create a brand recognition, because doing a general social media post and getting that brand built up there still isn't helpful if your buyers are not on LinkedIn very active. Your ops people and finance people and comp people, they don't have enough time to come on LinkedIn because they're always in the loop, right? Like every quarter and every month, and they're busy in their own world. So it's not like a sales persona or a marketing persona who I consider generally to be a lot more active on channels like that. So that's when we realized there is nowhere else we should be other than just in front of them. And the only way to do that is through ABM. And yeah, that's how we are at ABM. Right.
Correct. So just switching gears a bit, Aditya here. So maybe what we can now cover is some of the challenges that you are facing as you are scaling up this marketing engine, right? And I'll just quickly share a few slides just to kind of talk through this. Also, everyone on the call, please do share any questions that you might have for Aditya. Please drop it in the chat, and we'll pick it up through the conversation, right? So I think, Aditya, as you said, so effectiveness of ABM was one of the challenges that you were facing, right? So you're investing a lot of effort and marketing dollars in ABM. So on ABM itself, what did you start with as the primary goal? Once you started doing ABM campaigns, what kind of campaigns did you do, and hence what were the challenges that you faced? If you can just talk about that.
Yeah. So obviously, we made all the early mistakes in ABM as much as possible to learn over the last year. One of the first things we started was picking a large bunch of accounts, close to 500 to 1,000 accounts, and trying to target all of them. We divided them into customers we know who have existing tools, customers who don't have existing tools as far as we are aware, and then targeting them based on regions, markets, etc. And how, based on what I told in terms of persona as well, it means taking 500 accounts and then doing contact enrichment to get at least 20 folks per account across all these functions so you can cover them. And then we went deeper into what we can do to add value to these accounts, right? We don't want to sell, we don't want to push them for a demo or something. So we went into, hey, let's do some display campaigns, sharing them useful content and brand resources hey, this is our review site rating. This is what a customer testimonial is. These are the case studies that we have. And then sharing some useful white papers and guides with no Everstage branding. Hey, how can you move from a supporting to strategic role in your particular function? And how can you get more ROI out of your tech stack, etc. And we started doing that over email campaigns. And then specific webinars around hey, how do you build an incentive plan, compensation plan, and started throwing mixers for RevOps folks in general around the world, physical events where we got them invited. Also tried our hands in a couple of direct gifting engagements and BDR-led reach outs, etc. And then we ended up finally hey, we'll also do a podcast with these accounts and try to create some content and then build a relationship as well. But it's a very elaborate set of things that we had to do over a period of 3 to 6 months to figure out what's going to work for us in our business model. And it was too tough to track. At some point, it was basically a lot of effort by the content team, design team, demand team, orchestrating all of this together. But at some point, we were like, hey, you ran a campaign to 100 accounts or 200 accounts in the last month. What happened? How did you figure out, what has happened? What has changed? Because they don't see new demos. They don't see new signups that has happened in the system. So what has happened? Have they downloaded something? And have they downloaded, can we push them for a journey? No, that's not ideal. You can't, someone downloads a white paper or webinar, they're just interested in the content. They don't want to buy a product. So you can't push them in that journey. So what do we, is it even working? Is it how it's supposed to be? Should we go get a consulting agency to see how it is? And that's when we were really stuck in a rut where we figuring out, hey, we're putting in all these efforts and we could see some positive traction in the market, right? Because people started to recognize us more. And people started to show up to in-house webinars. Hey, they're not going to come on to any webinar, right? They need to know the brand. They need to find resonance with the content. So at some point, our tracking was basic, and that was the biggest challenge that we had. How do we move away from something like email opens, which at some point we also figured out, hey, you open the email and check HubSpot tracks it as an open. So at some point, that's also not very helpful. So that was the biggest challenge that we had because once we decided, hey, let's go, it was quite a bit of convincing with our CEO trying to say, let's do ABM. But once we started doing ABM, then we had to go all out and then see how can we track it and show that we are making a difference. So that was the biggest challenge.
Got it. And once you selected this pool of accounts, for how long were you nurturing those accounts with, and from what you said, a very diverse set of campaigns, right? So you had display campaigns, you had events, you were inviting them for webinars and podcasts, and you had content which you were nurturing them via emails with. So how long would you give for a set of accounts? Would it be like a 3 to 6 months sort of an exercise?
I think you want to take that, Kasan?
Yeah. So like how the ABM idea or the strategy itself evolved over the last 1 year, I think the way we treated these accounts in terms of channel, in terms of engagement has also changed a lot. Initially, we tried to run a campaign for say 2 months continuously where we keep giving them content that's useful for them, trying to drive them back to the website because like Adit said, just tracking email opens is not going to get us anywhere. We need to know if these accounts actually have any intent or not when we are putting a 60 days worth of effort on them, right? So that's how it started. But then at some point we realized that we wouldn't have to spam them entirely. We could probably just divide our lists in a very specific way. And then we got into the whole persona mapping where we broke them down into who would be the champions for us within these organizations, who would be decision makers. So why I say this segmentation matters is because for champions, you wouldn't have to, for decision makers, you wouldn't have to bombard them with emails. You wouldn't have to give them a lot of things. You just have to make sure that when they decide to look at new solutions to solve for sales commission, Everstage needs to be on top of mind. So only that brand awareness is the key aspect when it comes to decision makers, where they should know that Everstage is one of the contenders. Whereas for champions who are going to make this decision with us and partner with us and choose a solution, we need to educate them further, right? So we got into that model where it was still 60 days, but then not everyone got the same emails, not everyone got the same frequency of content. It was basically packaged in a way where it was ideal for each of those personas. For example, VP sales wouldn't be involved in that buying decision as much as a RevOps person or a finance person would, right? So in that cases, we would just stick to like a monthly webinar or something that we did for this particular persona, and that's the only type of engagement that got to sales as a group, right? Whereas for RevOps, you try to do a lot more and a lot more frequently.
Got it. Understood. In terms of, I think the next challenge that was that we had discussed, right? So this was purely around figuring out identifying high intent accounts, right? So Aditya, again, I remember from our past discussion that there were two specific points here. One was in terms of, let's say you defined an account list. How do you discover, let's say, new accounts beyond this account list? And the second is to say, how do you actually monitor the same account list, whether their level of engagement is reaching a certain stage for you to then involve the sales team, right? And obviously, AE is monitoring, an existing book of accounts that they are engaging with as well. So could you kind of talk through that?
Yeah. So I think this is how the market has also shifted over the last few years, right? Like there used to be just inbound and outbound. Now it is no longer just inbound and outbound. There is also an intent-based outbound, a new engine in some sense. But basically, like, when you do all these campaigns, what you realize is, hey, the cleanest way is to look at it to say who's visiting a website and has this increased from this cohort, like these cohort of 500 accounts. How have they visited you in the last quarter? And after you do all these campaigns, display ads, emails, invitations, everything, how has that changed? And that basically was one of the key metrics in which we could say that we are creating brand awareness. Factors made that happen in a lot of ways for us, right? Like this much better match rate in general to show how the engagement has been. And that's when we also, got into a new engine as well, which is basically, hey, so there are companies that are visiting the key pages, and those are from these cohort of accounts that we're targeting. But that was just 10%. There were 90% of companies that were visiting our key pages. Like, there's something like a book a demo page, your pricing page, your competitor comparison landing page that you run ads on. So who's visiting them? And that's when things started getting very interesting, right? Because with factors, what we were able to do was at an account level, we were able to see if someone from that account engaged in our website in any way. And I know it's at a company level, you're not going to get granular first party intent data, in a lot of ways that's illegal. So it's at a company level, it's still useful because you get location to some extent, you will be able to approximate who that persona is. And that's when it started to really click, because at ABM level we were able to see, but outside of ABM we were also able to see who are all visiting our website, book a demo, and other pages. And that meant a new engine for BDRs to target. And at a customer level, we were able to see, who's visiting what pages, like in prospect and pipeline, like who's visiting what pages, like what are they consuming? Are they interested in something? Like we send a link and then they open that link and then factors as a notification saying hey, this customer has visited this page. And that gave us a lot of confidence as well, because interestingly, one of our customers were checking out a competitor page and then we were able to reach out just in time to save an account as well. So like those kinds of things happen. Like one of the prospects which we know weren't been active for a while actually came to our book a demo page and checked out, and then as sales rep immediately reached out to them and then they responded, and we immediately made the conversation from cold to active again, right? So those kind of things started to happen, which also meant a lot of this data is real. It does make a difference if you are able to process the data and then do justice to them. And yeah, that's how, like, the challenge in intent is also, like, hey, how do you justify ABM? And then you go down that rabbit hole, and now you have a new engine which is basically gonna justify a lot more than just ABM alone.
Yeah, I think that timely reach out is really like so underappreciated, right? Somewhere they've had a conversation in that company to say, hey, compensation management is something that sales reps are, let's say, discussing and complaining about, and hence someone checks out Everstage. Having that ability to reach out in a timely fashion does make it much more likely that they'll respond to you, right? In terms of the kind of accounts that you saw were visiting some of these high intent pages, were you surprised that some segment which you had not thought of was actively checking out Everstage? Did you get any ideas on new sets of companies that you could kind of go to?
Definitely, because today the ABM campaign also is limited based on how we were able to enrich. And you could enrich a software company like very accurate. You pick certain industries, you're not going to find more than a few contacts, but it's still like, they're doing 100 million, 200 million, like staffing as an industry. Like, the staffing business in US is so big, but you're not going to find enough people on ZoomInfo for you to target. So a lot of such accounts where it's not going to be possible for you to reach through email. The only way for you to track whether they are engaging with you or not is through your website data. So we saw this really helpful in other industries where basically, like, people from other industries are visiting us. Now we still have to go through LinkedIn, figure out much better ways to reach out to them. But that's when we also expanded, okay, it's not just software folks that are coming to our website, it's across the board. And that's when we also made it very clear, like, hey, our ICP is not based on the industry, it's more about the number of pays that they have, like, the number of reps that they have that we can, like, probably help them with. And that, like, we were already a little open about industries in general and didn't really fixate on one. But after the intent data started really flowing in, that's when we realized, like, every industry is, like, has the same problem. We just have to figure out a way to reach out to them at the right moment.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that a lot of our my customers keep saying, right? Like, you start with a certain idea that this is the sort of TAM and ICP and the segment that you want to go after, and then you're surprised, and you put out a website and you have enough traffic coming in, and you're surprised by all these other industries that are actively on your website, right? Like, for ourselves as well, we never considered PR firms as like a great target fit for Factors, right? So we're going after software and technology, IT services, business services, right? Last couple of months, what we've seen is we have a lot of investment banks, legal services firms, PR services firms. I think staffing, I should check that out as well. So a more, without your bias of which segments make more sense, getting that, real time feedback of these are the sort of accounts that are actively researching, which kind of helps you revise your TAM accordingly, right? I think the third thing is more around reporting and analytics, right? And maybe Ani here, you could kind of talk about how was the sort of reporting sort of system at Everstage, and again, what were some of the issues with respect to the reporting infrastructure that you had?
Got it. Yeah. So when you consider the entire pipeline or like full funnel reporting, right? And let's start all the way from impressions, how many people see your ad, and till the part where they become an SQL or an opportunity for us, right? There are at least like two sources that measure this data, and they are very disparate. For example, Google Analytics, which is now GA4, is measuring everything from traffic to, like basically across like whoever's visiting your site and then who's visiting the conversion pages and things like that. But it's HubSpot, which acts as the CRM, which takes all the lead data. And before Factors, I think it used to be a lot of sheet for us. We had to create weekly spreadsheets to sort of understand how our funnel conversion rates are, how our page conversion rates are. And each of these pointers are very important, but then it's not something that you should spend a day worth of your time just figuring out what's happening when like it could be automated. I think that's the part where we realized that manual reporting it's not going to cut it after a point. And I think it was very easy until we had like single digit or double digit leads per week or something, right? But right now, since our volume is starting to go up, it's not very easy for us to like. It's still going to be possible to get the data, but we are not going to be able to infer anything from it usefully because when you arrive at the end of the sheet, there's no more in you to continue and get more out of it, right? So I think that's the place where I think Factor steps in a lot for us in terms of connecting these two sources. Because of the code on the website and integration with HubSpot, it's very easy for us to understand what's happening all the way from impression to SQL. So I think that's the crucial part of the funnel where we have sort of realized value in.
So all the way from impressions and clicks in your ad platform to website visits to demos, SQLs, and pipeline in the CRM. So getting that end-to-end sort of unified view at an account level, right?
Yeah.
Cool. Now, and prior to this, you were largely managing this using spreadsheets and sort of manual reporting. Of that.
At best, we could go for Data Studio, where we pull in data from all sources and then build our dashboards there. But then even that involves a lot of manual work, and it's either spreadsheets or Data Studio. But then it had to connect with Google Ads, it had to connect with our website and HubSpot. It's just too much work.
Got it. So just shifting gears here in terms of how some of these challenges were finally solved, right? And I think the first one, Aditya, which you had mentioned to me previously, was just like coming up with a new measurement framework. As you said, pure inbound engine, far easier to kind of measure. There is a well-defined sort of playbook. But when you have inbound, ABM, outbound at the same time, how did you go about, just defining that playbook for Everstage to say this is how you would measure the effectiveness of marketing?
Yeah. Actually, the decision to buy Factors actually wasn't such a big decision at all, because the tool immediately paid for itself. Because if you think about it today, most of what we do in inbound at all these big companies as well, in a lot of ways, is, hey, there is an inbound budget. You have your product campaigns, your competitor campaigns, brand campaigns. You're running it, and then, hey, what's the cost per lead? What's your CPC like? What's your click-through rate, and how many did you convert? And then the funnel is, like, how much did you become leads? How many of them became your pipeline? How many of them then became your customers, right? Why we really started to realize is, like I said, in enterprise or mid-market product, you're not going to have immediate conversions. Especially, there's no urgency for them to book a demo or to do something, because there's no free trial for them to come check out a product. So there's no urgency for them that's inbuilt into an SMB flow, right? Which means they're not going to convert. And then there are months where you're going to have your competitor campaigns have zero conversions. Now, that doesn't mean it's doing very bad. All of a sudden, we have to turn off this and move on, right? From a first principles, it makes sense to still consider those who visited your website as someone who was potentially interested in that keyword and came to your website with the right intent, but probably didn't have the same urgency that they probably needed to. So you have to sell the urgency to them, why they should choose you, and also why now. So that's when we realized, okay, it's not just treat inbound as a vanilla. ROI needs to be on the page, needs to be direct conversion channel. And then once we, this was, I remember, still in, around 2021, and then Steve showed me this data. Hey, who comes to your website, we can track who that is, and then shows you. And then he opened a demo page and showed this is what, these are the people that who visited, these are companies that who visited. And then I asked him, hey, can you show us for landing pages? And that's when everything clicked for us. And then we said, hey, we're spending 50K, 30K on your ad campaigns, and we are getting a lot of conversions. Let's also get a resource, right? Like, let's get a media person full-time dedicated to their website visits data, and then see who visits your website. Can the PDR now reach out and then say, hey, a little buddy told me you are interested in Everstage, like, be a resource to you. Like, do genuine campaigns, not too salesy, trying to get them on a call. And then a lot of times that's when we realize it started converting. So today we don't no longer measure ROI for inbound campaigns based on pipeline generated from the campaign itself. It's a good to have, but we don't make any decision based on it. Like, our decision there tells you your landing page effectiveness. That's all. It doesn't tell you the actual return on investment and pipeline generated from the campaign. And whenever we look at, should we spend on a campaign? Are we spending too much? The decision always goes back into, let's go look at influence pipe. Let's go look at how many people visited that website and got assigned to PDRs, and then how many of them were they able to convert. And today, our landing pages convert in low single digits, and our PDR motion also converts in low single digits. So put together, it's high single digit conversion from your landing page itself. And the ROI there is pretty sweet. in terms of for us to justify the usual payback metrics of 12 to 18 months within that. So we are well within that, or even better than that when it comes to our ROI. But that way of approaching really opened a lot of doors for us, because that also meant as marketing, you are allowed to experiment with a lot of stuff, trying to get people to your page, get people to click on your campaigns, and then hope that hey, I'll try to get those people and I'll try those risky keywords where you're not going to get a lot of conversions directly, but you have to hope that those companies that are visiting for, let's say, a particular integration with a competitor product, and then now you can reach out with that context and then see if you can convert. And that basically meant we are talking about influence conversions, influence pipe almost always everywhere. We don't just consider direct pipe to do the ROI analysis from a campaign. That also meant we were using that for a lot more things, hey, did an ABM account visit our landing page? So now we already have context about the account. So the BDRs may not reach out with a generic email campaign, but rather with the context of the account and with the landing page visit intent inside, they're able to personalize it a lot more higher level. And that was able to really get us a lot of conversions into demos booked and customers won from this engine.
Got it. So essentially, if I were to paraphrase that, so you're saying rather than looking at a very transactional cost per lead on the landing page for like a paid campaign, you were able to move to cost per engaged accounts, cost per identified ICP accounts. So you are using that as a signal to say this account may not have converted then and there, but that's purely because the product is not a very transactional click and buy right now and then move on sort of an experience. But what you get now is a very valuable signal to say this account, which is in our target account list or is otherwise a great fit, is active in the market and researching these keywords, right? And then for your BDRs, rather than giving them 100 cold accounts where you don't have any sort of information about whether those accounts are interesting, they also have the advantage of looking at a warm set of accounts. So your paid marketing ROI improves, your BDR efficiency also improves. So in general, it's like a net positive for both sort of parties. Got it. Understood.
And that's just icing on the cake, right? Like the BDRs getting to work on these kind of accounts is just much better for their morale, because they are brand aware accounts in some sense. Instead of doing cold outreach where they're I haven't heard about you at all. Like here, it's more like, okay, I remember seeing this brand somewhere. So it helps.
Got it. And I think the other point which you mentioned, which is the ability to experiment, right? I think that's also something that's like very important, right? Just trying out new keywords, understanding what kind of companies are searching for those keywords, right? It may not work out, but for all you know, you'd suddenly be able to figure out that, hey, there is the accounts that we are seeing from these adjacent keywords that you looked at are also really relevant for your business, right? So rather than looking at immediate sort of cost per lead sort of a metric, but was this like a mindset shift that you had to kind of go through in your entire team to say, and especially given the backgrounds that both of you have, was that something which took some time to make this shift?
I think we were on board right away, because that basically meant we had more leeway around budgets, ROI, payback, etc. I still remember the hesitation. The hesitation was, does that mean anything? Someone visiting your website, does that mean anything? And let's take Freshworks, right? Like, the company. Someone visits your website doesn't mean anything. So because it could be an engineer, all we know, he might be looking for a job, or he or she might be. So that's when we also made a sense. Hey, let's look at a competitive keyword landing page. No one from a company is going to visit a page that is not crawled on Google, tagged on Google to Everstage. The only way it's they are going to come through is with an intent search and keyword search. So that's when we realized, okay, so it doesn't make sense for a general set of pages, but for certain pages, let's experiment. Someone visits a major competitor page, or a very specific product page that only goes through a specific channel. And then we started that as an experiment to say, hey, this is a hypothesis. Let's go run campaigns for these accounts alone, this month alone, and then let's try what's converting. And then we have a very good BDR leader who was quickly able to put things together and was able to basically say, okay, now I see what's happening, and then he was able to convert within a month, the team was able to convert a couple of opportunities from there. And that meant that basically opened up a lot of leads for us. Now all of a sudden, how much more data can we get? Can we get more tools that can give us more intent data? So that we can get then more different channels of intent data, like review side intent data and everything. And then today, that's a full-fledged engine with that mindset. But when we started, it's like means nothing. We are just wasting time. We might rather sell outbound to companies that are there. And then, you will have this challenge, any startup, you're gonna be short on resources, right? You're not gonna be able to focus on a lot of things with good quality. So you will deprioritize a lot of things and prioritize a few things and go after. So I think that's how it started, but then eventually it really took up very well, right? I think Ani also had a lot of experience over this particular with Sajbi as well, where he has seen that journey of resistance and then embracing. So Ani, you want to add a few on that?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I think the part around leveraging intent, I think it's still a very early concept. Like not a lot of companies have started doing that. It's primarily because there is like a specific way that things have been done so far, where you put in some money in Google Ads and then you expect leads to come up and then SQLs. I mean that did work and that still continues to work, but it's not what you are spending on, right? It's like basically you're just saying that I'm only worried about 3% of the people that convert on my website. But whereas when we start looking at something like this beyond conversions, like what if your end goal wasn't converting people into leads, but what if you could get a visitor in, make them stay on your website, browse through pages for 5 minutes? Like I think that could be I think that will become a goal in the future rather than leads, because you know that there is a good engagement from that company and you know that there is definitely intent and they're aware of the product. And I think unlocking this has been that's basically what I've been trying to do for the last 2 years, and it's great to see that Factors enables me to do a lot more with just the tool. Like apart from just enriching accounts or like finding out who's visiting, I think the slides following this will probably help us talk more about what we are actionably, like what we are able to do with these intel, right? For example, like with respect to identification itself, I think before Factors we had a couple of platforms, and we still do, but then there was a specific player that we used where it was giving us good account level data, but I don't know, it just didn't lead to any conversion at all. And we realized that it was because of the volume of accounts that it was able to give us. And how did we realize it? That was through the POC that we did with you guys, of course. And the initial company, the first product that gave us accounts, had a lot of mechanisms to bring data back to HubSpot, make sure that the connection is seamless. But then when it comes to match rates, when it comes to absolutely identifying the number of companies on your website, we saw somewhere around 2x of the data identified in Factors compared to what we saw in the other place. And then that sort of helped us realize that, okay, probably we were thinking about our market entirely wrong, right? There are more people looking for products like Everstage, and that's when it sort of opened our eyes as well to evaluate more on Factors and then try to get more of reverse IP and identifying accounts on board. So that was, I think, the primary like decision making factor, right? We did have mechanisms to get intent out, but then we just thought that was it. We just thought the potential was over, but then there was obviously a lot more, and that's starting to bear fruit right now.
So basically, with Factors, you are able to identify 2 times the number of accounts as compared to the solution that you were previously using.
Yep.
Got it.
That's right.
And once you are able to identify these accounts, right? So what else do you kind of look at, right? Like how deep do you go in terms of research for those accounts, and how do you use that data?
Got it. So the way the intent is like channeled into our like media team or our enrichment team is we've divided it based on the type of page that the people visit, right? So comparing against competitors, that's like the topmost intent for us, and probably book a demo or a conversion page would be an equal goal. Whereas when they visit one of our L1 pages or product pages, for example, it's more of they're just beginning to evaluate and they don't have a clear idea of who they want or what they want. And like it's probably an easier sell there because they haven't made up a mind about a particular competitor. They're just looking for a lot of tools openly, and that would be a better place for us to pitch a lot faster. So how it sort of helps is firstly, with respect to messaging, we are able to differentiate between the kind of intent that we get. We are able to say that, hey, if we get someone visiting our competitor pages, we can have a sequence that specifically talks about how we have the edge over the competitor. Whereas if it's a product page or an L1 page that comes in, we could just talk about the market condition and how we are better in the market compared to all the other players. And probably a lot of case studies and testimonials would help there. And when it comes to book a demo, you know that they may almost came to become a lead with you, but then they just dropped off at the last moment. So it's sort of just a nudge that will do the job for you. So first step would be by messaging, where based on the page that they visit, we are able to segregate them and then give a personalized treatment. And the second thing is, like Adit mentioned, we have more than 4 or 5 people in our core buying committee, right? Which means each of them will be, there are two complexities. One is each of them will be at different stages of their buying journey. Some might be product unaware, some might be product aware, some might know Everstage, some might not, right? So, and then you also have RevOps, finance, sales, a lot of different functions which are involved in the decision making. And how it sort of helps us is we sort of look at the kind of page that got visited, and we try to connect it and understand if it was done by a finance person. What if there's a specific guide about particular compliance or something, we would probably think of, okay, it's probably the finance person from this company that's starting to evaluate. Our BDRs could go full on and go one-to-one with that particular department, right? And that's one thing, and definitely the IP part itself. So I think that would I think it would be a great product feature where if you sort of understand where the IP visits are coming from, and you're able to do the prospecting yourself and tell us that, hey, 5 people from New York from this company visited your website. And then if you look at LinkedIn and then compare, you'll obviously just find 10 or 15 people from a company. And that narrows down who would have visited our website for us as well. So we currently do it manually, where we get out people from a particular region where they visited from, and then our enrichment team focuses on that region from that company and then figures out a contact list of people who potentially visited our website, right? So these are the ways we have bucketed the accounts that we get, and sort of how we offer very differentiated personalized treatment for each of them.
Got it. So the timeline and the detailed view helps you understand what kind of intent is it? Is it more product aware sort of customers, or they're already looking at competitors, etc., and also helps you understand the different stakeholders over there, right? So if it's a finance related person, then you can prioritize your outreach. So you can shortlist your the people that you are reaching out to, as well as personalize the outreach based on what you're seeing over here. In terms of like the automations for the sales teams, right? So currently, how is this intelligence kind of delivered to the sales teams? If you can talk about that as well in terms of operationalizing this, I think that would be helpful. Yeah, definitely. So I think the first part is we have a report that's built out on factors which keeps refreshing every day, and we have set the filters in a way where we just get the ICP accounts that we want to reach out to. And we have a team internally who work solely on enriching these accounts and also finding out relevant contacts on these accounts through the process that I mentioned earlier. And then it all goes into outreach and HubSpot. And our sales team primarily works out of outreach, the BDR team, and they start triggering emails based on the persona from outreach, and that gets recorded back to HubSpot. And we track everything within HubSpot right now to understand how many accounts we're able to convert. And one more thing that we are setting up right now in its early stages, sort of have this Slack alert specifically for someone who's getting the account assigned to them. Right now, we have a couple of channels that are dedicated to giving them this intel and understanding what page they visited and how long did they spend on that page, and who the owner is and things like that, right? So it's sort of that's the real-time alerts that we've set up right now. Again, the priority there is to make sure that the communication is timely and we get immediately whenever someone's showing intent. So that's how we've set up alerts so far. Got it. Understood. So I think so then to summarize, one was about measuring the true ROI of your campaigns, now that it was not just a inbound sort of a model, but it's an inbound plus outbound sort of an engine that you're running. The second piece was around just identifying accounts that are showing a lot of activity on your sort of website, where you are able to get roughly 2 times the number of accounts identified using factors as compared to the other solutions. The third was looking at the detailed view in terms of how do you actually personalize your outreach as well as shortlist the right set of stakeholders. And then lastly, automating the entire process for your sales team in terms of alerts and automation into outreach so that they are not really having to learn a new software, but they're able to kind of access all of this intelligence in their sort of regular workflow, right? So I think what I'll do is, I mean, would love to see if there are any questions from anyone on the call or any anything that you'd want to kind of clarify. So please do drop in your questions. But yeah, in the meanwhile, Ani, what we could talk about whilst the questions kind of roll in is what's next for Everstage now in terms of intent-based outreach? What are you now excited about implementing? And even from a general ABM marketing perspective, what are the new initiatives that you are picking up at Everstage?
Got it. Yeah, so we are trying to go a little more on ABM with respect to detailing, right? We are like we've been saying, ABM has evolved a lot for us, and we've grown along with it, right? And like each step, we've added a little bit more detail and color to the program, and it's sort of in a place where it's super personal. It's super relevant for the prospects that we're reaching out to, and every initiative or every channel that we go out with is place where our audience actually is. It's not just emails and LinkedIn anymore, and like everyone knows that that's not going to be the only two channels that keep performing. And we are trying to tap into a lot of signals, a lot of alerts at an account level and at a person level, and we are trying to figure out if, say, we have a group of people, if say there's a sales compensation team and they're looking to hire new people, or if they've gotten in more people into the team, or if their sales team has increased by size. We are trying to monitor a lot of signals that are meaningful to us, and trying to make sure that every part of our campaign also carries that context and delivers when we speak to our potential customers, right? So I think that's the area that we are trying to bridge the gap with respect to how personalized we can get when we do ABM.
Got it. So business signals like how fast is the sales team growing? Have they just hired, or do they have an open role for like a RevOps person or a commission management sort of a role?
Yeah.
So signals like that, which then when combined with their level of engagement with your website and ads channels, etc., gives you like a better sense of whether that account is a fit and helps you personalize. So now, just so that I know here, which one do you think is a bigger problem? Is it the prioritizing of the accounts, or is it the personalization? Like, or both are equally important?
I'd say they are equally important. I wouldn't miss out on personalization even if I have more information on how to prioritize the account. And I think it's sort of one helps the other, because the things that you receive to prioritize accounts is actually the context that you will end up using in your personalization and outreach. So I think those are very connected, and I would probably give equal weightage to both of them when I do more ABM campaigns, right? Adit, anything to add on top of that?
Yeah, I think to personalize, there needs to be some amount of prioritization. So we can't expect them to personalize for everything. So my answer would be like, like, can we first prioritize and reduce the number of accounts so that how deep they can personalize? But still, like, that doesn't mean we shouldn't personalize in a lot of ways, right? Because with all this efforts, all you have is like, you have a vast amount of data. Like, who in a particular account is engaged with your brand, what are they interested in, and all those data. If you're not personalizing, then again, you're not doing justice. So I think it comes sequential rather than like, at the same time, but still you have to do both. Like, completely agree with Ani on that.
Got it. Understood. Any new channels that you are experimenting with? Any new initiatives itself within marketing for these accounts? I know the podcast is relatively new, right?
Yeah. So I think that's a channel where content and demand came together and came to the idea where basically, so create genuine awareness and also create good content. Like, find good people who are active on social, who have interesting, like, experience and interesting flavor of content to share. and then get them invited to the podcast. Let them also be your good accounts for you, so that you're able to build that relationship, but also get context about the account in general. That's something we have started trying recently, and it has worked out to some extent. But again, that doesn't mean anything. You just got one person from a company came to you, shared context and stuff. Now you still have to figure out a way to target that company and create that urgency need for a tool, right? Because a lot of times, as long as the tool works as it is, they're not going to shift. Nobody's going to take up excess migration and move everything from somewhere. So you need to create that reason for them to shift. So that's still different, but for that, I think we're going deeper into display ads itself. We're trying to get one-to-one targeting at a company level, at a personal level, and then see if you're able to get in front of exactly who we want to get in front of. I think that's an interesting initiative that we're going to be doing next year. On top of that, the general stuff, right? Like experimenting heavy on marketing sides, especially on the creatives. Can we do more brand campaigns that help them recollect whatever stages? And yeah, all of these stuff, we also need to hire people to man that. So many of you in the call interested in picking up a good demand role, and then you work closely with me, Ani, and the other BDR and DevOps leadership team. You can hit me or Ani up on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to chat with you to see if you are a fit for the role. But we're also trying to expand our team to support all these efforts as well, right?
Got it. Yeah, I think that's probably like a very good place to kind of end the session today. So thanks a lot, Aditya and Ani, for taking the time out to share your journey at Everstage. In terms of the transition from a Freshworks Chargebee to a mid-market enterprise focused, relatively complex product with a relatively long sales cycle, and how you had to kind of move from pure inbound to an all-bound model. Obviously, we are very happy that we are able to play a part in that journey, and excited to see everything that's coming your way at Everstage. Thanks everyone for attending the session today. If there are any questions, please feel free to ping any of us. And look forward to kind of engaging with the community. All right. Thanks everyone.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Praveen. Bye-bye.
For attending the session.